The Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack here in the U.S. is creating ripple effects on gasoline in Australia. Meanwhile, Ireland is dealing with a malware problem of its own. Ian Lee is in London following those stories and more. Ian, good morning.
Good morning, Anne-Marie. The good news is the ransomware attack on Ireland's health services is not expected to affect the vaccine rollout, but CEO Paul Reid said what they're dealing with is quite sophisticated and a major incident. Hackers targeted information technology systems and data stored on and transferred across central servers. The HSE was made aware of the attack during the night and is currently trying to contain it by shutting down all national and local IT systems. They hope to know the full scale of the damage later today. While vaccinations aren't being affected, non-urgent appointments are likely to be impacted. So far, no one has claimed responsibility. Next, we are in Canada, where Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has been cleared in a corruption scandal. Last year, a charity was hired to oversee a volunteer program for students during the pandemic. It turned out that Trudeau had personal ties to the organization, but a report by Canada's ethics watchdog found it was the former finance minister, Bill Monroe, who breached federal conflict of interest rules. Monroe took a trip that was partially covered by the charity. He resigned after the scandal broke and paid back $33,000. We now move on to Australia, where the shutdown of the fuel pipeline in the United States is having a ripple effect around the globe. Sydney drivers are being told to fill up their cars ahead of higher prices at the pump. If it isn't one thing, it is another. The fuel shortage in the U.S. initially sent oil prices up, but now markets are also watching the conflict between the Israelis and Palestinians. Finally, we are staying in Australia for our next story, where a large infestation of mice is making life miserable for folks in the country's rural southeast. There are reports of people waking up from mice biting their feet and crawling on their faces. A local school is said to be inundated. All of this can be blamed on a bumper crop of grain, which is usually a good thing, but because of the contamination from mice droppings, tons of grain can't be sold and you end up with a bumper crop of mice. Emery, so I'm a country boy from Wyoming, so a large number of mice means two things for me. First, people need to get themselves some barn cats. Second, watch out for snakes. When rodent populations boom, so do animals that eat them. And Australia has a lot of dangerous snakes. I'd be more worried about waking up with one of them biting my feet or on my face.
I know, snakes, rodents, when do the locusts come? This sounds like something biblical, but the barn cat thing is not actually a bad idea. I was just reading that Chicago just released 1,000 feral cats into the city in order to deal with their rat and rodent problem. And so, maybe Australia needs to, deputize a few thousand cats and let them loose and see what happens.
I think my folks have a couple they could borrow.
That's great. Ian Lee, thank you so much. Have a good weekend, Ian.
You too.